Parasitic friends use proximity. So I started thinking about this concept when I was reflecting on some associates that I've had in the past, acquaintances. And I was like, wow, they were relatively parasitic. Now, mind you, this was in my grade school, college days, so I was relatively younger. However, in college, I was experiencing a level of maturity, especially in comparison to my grade school experiences. And I remember having certain encounters with individuals who I realized that their relationship or their association with me was contingent upon receiving some kind of perks and benefits. Another thing that stood out to me is the fact that my approach to my relationships, my friendships, and my partnerships is generous. I am boundaried up and I'm not afraid to set a boundary. However, because I don't lead with a comparison or a competitive intention, and also I don't have a mindset of lack. When I choose to give to somebody, especially if they say they're in need of something, I do it because I understand that I'm coming from a place of abundance and I know that I'm going to get it back, if not more. However, there are other people who do not operate that way. And I was reflecting on a particular individual who it was so funny being associated with her. This was when I was in college, because it almost felt like she thought she was getting a one-up on me, but she didn't understand that I saw her from a mile away. My association with this person was just simply based off of convenience. It was a matter of we were pursuing the same, goals at that time, professional goals, educational goals, rather. And our majors were the same. I believe she ended up transferring her major a little bit later on down the line. But at the time when we, became associated and acquainted with one another, we were pursuing the same major. We were taking a lot of the same courses. Ironically enough, we had a lot of mutuals. So it was just a friendship of convenience. Well, maybe not a friendship, but us being associated with one another was a matter of convenience. And I also, realistically, I didn't always want to walk across the campus by myself, right? I wanted someone to go and get coffee with. I wanted someone to go to like the lunch hall, the dining hall with, and didn't always want to be by myself. I wanted to small talk, have some conversations, maybe compare some notes from class together. And I think that's the beautiful thing about certain environments, right? Where you can acknowledge the fact that your association with certain people is simply based off of mutual benefit. Or if the person isn't necessarily reciprocating, maybe it's an association based off of convenience, such as what I described earlier. However, although I was able to navigate that particular, partnership or association with the strategy to where I didn't leave it empty-handed, even if that person thought that that was going to be the outcome, I saw them from a mile away and I made sure that wasn't the case. However, I did want to talk about this concept of being a little bit more cautious when you pick up on certain red flags and signs that there may be someone who has a parasitic personality type and they are trying to associate themselves with you. And the danger isn't necessarily being around these people, because you can survive being around these people as long as you are aware of their tactics and you implement strategy of your own to protect yourself. But if you are someone who is going into, an association or a connection with someone who has displayed these parasitic tendencies, and you're mislabeling this association as a mutual friendship rather than an association out of convenience, this is where you could step into dangerous territory because your intentions are skewed. And what I mean by that is you all are on two completely different playing fields. This person is interested in sucking you dry, for lack of better words, of your resources, of your contributions, of your vitality, of your maybe relationships and connections, while you're interested in building this person up. So when we think about becoming acquainted with someone who is parasitic and your mind is on giving this person your all and you're labeling them as a friendship, you're thinking at some point this is going to be mutually beneficial, you're eventually going to find yourself in a state of depletion because this person has no intentions whatsoever to pour back into you. They have no intentions of reciprocating. And in fact, this act of depletion is intentional. And there's also individuals who are parasitic in nature, not just because they're selfish, but because they have a mentality of if you can't beat them, join them. So if I can't compete with this person, if I can't compare myself to this person because I acknowledge the fact we are not on the same playing field, we're on two completely different playing fields, I will use this act of pity and being in need to suck this person dry of their resources, to suck this person dry of their connections and relationships. Another thing that stands out to me about parasitic quote unquote friends, right? Just for the nature of this video, I'll call it friends, but we all know at this point it's not necessarily a friend. They may be guising or disguising themselves as a friend to get close to you to reap those benefits, but they're not really your friend because friendships require reciprocity and mutual effort. Nevertheless, another thing to take note of about parasitic persons is they play the long game. And you have to be careful because you may be mislabeling your association with this person as a friendship because of duration. And this is why you can't necessarily gauge a person's loyalty or their how can I describe it? Their qualifications, there we go, for being a real friend in your life or receiving that label, receiving that title. You can't base it off of timelines because there are people who are parasitic and they don't mind playing the long game with you, playing nice long enough, not stepping on your toes long enough because they don't want to lose benefits. They don't want to lose the person, the benefits that come with being associated with you. So to give some examples of what those benefits may look like, it could be financial. It could also be status. This is why I have videos on my channel talking about the dangers of social climbing, right? So we have to be mindful of the fact that, yes, social climbing is something that people are implementing to protect themselves from parasitic persons, but we also have to look at things from the opposite perspective and put ourselves in the shoes of the individuals who are often at the, how can I describe this? They are at the mercy, quote unquote, of individuals who are only associating themselves with them because they want to social climb off of them. So it's important to take note of individuals who are parasitic in that regard. And that's why they're around you and they're tolerating you for as long as they are because you benefit them in some way. And it can also look like them being able to social climb when they're around you. So someone can be parasitic in respect to social capital. For example, say you are the kind of person who you draw in social interactions, interpersonal interactions, and it's not always limited to like romantic. It could also expand to professional opportunities. This was something that was really big for me with this one person that stands out that I'm referencing for this video that I was around in college. I realized that this person, when it came to certain opportunities and events, and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to go to this. That's where they will feel the need to, kind of impede and embark on what I was doing. And I realized, though, when it came to their gatherings where it was about like partying and having fun and just socializing with our peers, they would gatekeep their friendships and their relationships and things like that. But when it came to me, they would kind of try to ride off of my coattails. And it's because I typically was able to navigate those spaces. And I didn't realize that this person was actually leeching off of me because they saw me as someone that they could feed off of. Now, as I stated before, the dangers of it is this, and my situation was different because this person wasn't able to deplete me because I knew what they were doing, and I also made sure to have boundaries in place. And if I was giving anything, I wasn't giving to the point to where I was personally depleted. I just did it because I felt, like, hey, if you need it, I'm not lacking. So you can, here, girl, you don't have to try to sneak and scheme. Like, it's not that deep. Here's the business card. Here's the person's Instagram that we were talking to and you said you thought like they were cute. Here you go, girl, and have fun. But nevertheless, you want to make sure that if you are dealing with this kind of person and, you haven't necessarily put those protective parameters in place, you have to proceed with caution. Because if you're not careful and you don't have a strategy of your own, these people will absolutely suck you dry of your resources, your contributions, your relationships, and they have no intentions of ever feeding back into you. Parasitic persons also utilize this strategy when they perceive that they can't necessarily compete with you, or comparing themselves to you is too counterproductive, right? You two are not operating on the same playing field. So a lot of the time they will use this strategy of pity and lack to deplete you of your resources. And that's how they, in their mind, even the playing field, right? So it's this mentality of if you can't beat them, join them. So they will join forces with you with the sole purpose of sabotaging everything that you've worked hard to build because they've come to the conclusion that they can't compete with you. So they'd rather ruin everything that you've built. But to describe what is meant by a parasitic person or personality type a little bit more, I'm actually going to read from an excerpt in the book to provide additional context. And the excerpt reads, there are two forms of company you cannot afford to keep: a parasite and a snake. A parasite is a liability because they seek out all that you can do for them with no intent of reciprocating. So putting that excerpt into context, mislabeling a parasitic person as a friend is dangerous because, as that excerpt read, a parasitic person is more interested in depleting you in order to survive themselves, and they have no intentions of pouring back into you. So what that means is, as long as you are around parasitic persons and you don't have tools to replenish yourself, to build back into yourself, as believers, we understand how important it is to recharge with the Holy Spirit, with the Lord through our devotional time, ourselves. Also, if you don't have people in your immediate circle who do provide that reciprocity for you, and instead you're relying on these parasitic persons to be your quote unquote support system, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because the purpose of the parasite is to deplete you. So you have to make sure that you are navigating these types of associations with the strategy. And the book actually has additional excerpts that goes into detail as far as how you can implement a strategy of your own to deal with these types of persons and not leave empty-handed. Because realistically, parasitic personalities run rampant in professional spaces, also when you run your own business. And the reason being that the essence of these types of entities are rooted in parasitic principles. They're always looking out for their best interests, the company's best interest, how it's going to be mutually beneficial for their organization, their corporation. So it's important to learn how to navigate these types of personalities and learning the art of not leaving these encounters and interactions empty-handed. Now, in my case, and this is definitely up for grabs, right? I definitely say, do whatever is best for you. For me, I decided, because I knew that I could navigate this person, I could navigate my association with this person and not leave empty-handed. I ended up becoming associated with this person based off of convenience. I didn't want to walk to the dining hall by myself or go to certain coffee shops and places by myself. So I always had those mental boundaries in place, and also those resource boundaries in place, right? I didn't mind giving, but once I realized that this person thought they were running game on me, I would cut them off, right? So it's definitely up for grabs, to each his own, do whatever works best for you. However, it still is important to learn these personalities, and most importantly, how to deal with these personalities, because it may not present itself in your personal relationships, whether it be a friendship, familial relationships, romantic, but it can also present itself professionally. And when it comes to your professional or business endeavors, you want to make sure that you are following suit with whatever your goal is, whatever your task is. So if that means that you may have to deal with someone who has parasitic intentions, it's important to master the art of making sure you're not leaving these types of interactions and encounters empty-handed. All right, babes, that's all that I have for this video on how parasitic friends utilize proximity to their benefit. Of course, I want to hear you all's comments, perspectives, and opinions, as well as your personal experiences in the comments below. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next analysis, babes. Take care.